Hi, I'm back today to read chapter 2 of the book Behind the Bedroom Wall. Once again, this book is written by Laura E. Williams. And yesterday we met the family of Karina and her friends, and we also heard about the Gestapo, who were the German soldiers. And also we met the cat that Karina's father bought for her. So now we are gonna go ahead and move on to chapter 2. Okay, chapter 2. By morning, Karina still hadn't chosen a name for her new kitten. The black and white mouse catcher raced around in crazy circles and made flying leaps at Karina's stockinged legs as she dressed. After a cold breakfast of rye bread spread with a thin layer of jam, Karina left her kitten purring next to the coal stove in the kitchen. I'm leaving! Mother! I'm leaving! Karina called from the front hall, shouldering her book bag. Frau Rim came from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel and hugged her daughter. Come home right after school today. Aunt Hendrikia is coming over for dinner. I won't forget, Karina promised as she slipped out into the cold morning air. She pulled the door shut behind her. Karina stamped her feet to keep warm as Rita and Eva crunched over to her through the snow. Hail Hitler, Rita called. Karina returned the greeting. Hail Hitler. Guess what? She added as she joined her friends. And they continued on toward school. Papa gave me a kitten to catch the mice, I heard. She's the cutest little thing. And look! Karina stopped walking and angled her calf to show them. The little monster bit a hole in my stocking. What does the kitty look like? Eva asked. She's black and white and so fuzzy. Maybe you can help me name her. Eva sighed. I wish I could have a kitty, but of course I don't have any mice in my walls. Corinna shuddered. I hope the traps really did scare the mice away. What if I ever saw a mouse race across my floor? I'm scared of them. Giggled Eva said. I know what I'd do. I'd scream. Corinna nodded. And I'd... Rita made an impatient sound in the back of her throat. Wait until you hear this, she interrupted, slicing her hand through the air for emphasis. Hands stopped by last night. Guess why her Hess was taken away? Why? Karina asked flatly. He was involved in a secret organization that helped Jews. He's being taken to the war camp, but first they're going to try to find out who else is in the organization. Karina shrugged. Maybe he'll never say who else was in the organization. My brother says they would have methods for extracting secrets out of prisoners. Eva's eyes widened. He told you all this? Rita shook her head. I heard him talking to Papa in the kitchen. They didn't know I was listening. What kind of methods? Karina couldn't help asking. Secret methods, Rita said, her voice a loud whisper. Hans isn't even allowed to tell his own father. And look at this, she continued, taking a small notebook out of the pocket in her coat. Karina and Eva looked at what Rita had scratched into the book in her messy scrawl. Fraulein Demmer made a face at the Fourier's pictures. Karina read out loud. She says it's a sin what's happening to the Jews. When she sees me, she looks guilty and doesn't say anything more for the rest of the night. Karina stopped reading suddenly. Frau Dimmer? You mean Elsa Dimmer? Rita nodded smugly. But, Rita, Elsa's your cousin. You're going to turn in your cousin? Eva exclaimed. Rita's face turned red. She's an enemy of Germany, isn't she? She shouldn't be so sympathetic to the enemy, and if she weren't so guilty, why did she avoid me for the rest of the night? She knows she's wrong. But still, Rita, family. Eva started walking again. Karina put a hand on Eva's shoulder. Remember, even family members can turn against the new Germany. Rita snapped a small notebook shut. They said to watch everyone. Karina nodded. She had a little black notebook just like Rita's. Hurry up, she said. We'll be late. They ran the last few hundred meters to the school and quickly made their way to their classroom. Karina and Eva were deskmates. Rita sat across the room. History was her favorite subject, especially with all the exciting events that were currently taking place. Someday, Karina knew every student in the world, every person in the world, in fact, would know the name Adolf Hitler. Everyone would honor and love him as she did, and everyone would say what wonderful things he had done for Germany. The strongest, the greatest power in the world. Karina smiled, opening her new book history, or opening her new history book. Hail Hitler! Karina looked up startled. I am Herr Rich, your new history teacher. Fraulein Meiser will no longer be here. Today we are going to study. Karina didn't hear the rest of Herr Rich's comments. Where was Fraulein Meiser? Beautiful Fraulein Meiser with her long blonde braid she wore wound up on her head like an upside down basket. What had happened to her? Karina tried to swallow past the lump in her throat. Her eyes slid sideways to Eva. Eva stared forward, but her eyes glimmered with tears, and her hands were clasped tightly in front of her. And these are the girls right here. See them? Okay. Karina looked down at the desk. What was it Fraulein Meiser had said last week? She had been instructing the class as to which pages should they should paste together in their history books, when in the middle of it all she had suddenly sighed and looked at the ceiling. When will all this stop? She had asked the ceiling. When? Then she had shaken her head and continued reading off the list of forbidden pages. Karina now remembered she had found it disturbing enough to mark it down in her small notebook. And after that, and that day after school, she had read her notes to her young model leaders. She she had tried to gloss over this little bit of information about her history teacher, not thinking that it was very important in retrospect. But her leaders had seemed particularly interested in what Fraulein Meiser had said during class that morning. Now, Karina wondered if she had had something to do with Fraulein Meiser's disappearance from school. Surely what her teacher had said in class wasn't enough to send her away, or was it? Karina tried to concentrate on the lesson, but her Rich had a voice that crept along like a slug in her mother's garden. Finally, when the history lesson was over, Karina followed Eva out of the room for a break. Eva, she called. Eva stopped and turned. Do you know why Fraulein Meiser isn't going to teach anymore? Eva shook her head. Someone probably reported her as being un-German, she said bitterly. Karina pulled a loose thread in on her sweater. She wouldn't be arrested just for saying something that sounded disloyal, would she? Who knows these days? One can never too be careful. Poor Fraulein Meiser. She shook her head and started walking down the hall. Karina heard and walked along beside Eva. I know you feel bad about what we saw yesterday, with her Has, but you should watch what you say. Rita thinks you're sounding un-German. Eva stopped walking and turned to Karina. Her lips trembled, and tears threatened to tip over her lower lashes. You know, Eva said slowly, I can't help the way I feel about things. I want a strong and rich fatherland just like my comrades. But sometimes I honestly wonder if it's worth it. Eva! Karina lowered her voice, quickly looking around, but no one was paying them any attention. You mustn't say things like that. If anyone heard you talking like that, you'd be turned in to our young model leaders. You're the only one who heard me, Karina. Are you going to turn me in? Corina stared at her friend, her comrade. her fellow young model member. But part of being a loyal German is turning in traitors. I'm going back to class, Karina said abruptly. She turned and walked away from Eva, but she could feel Eva's eyes staring after her. That's the end of chapter 2, boys and girls. So, what do you think? Do you think Karina will turn on her friend? Hmm. Yes? No? Why do you say that? Okay, we can discuss that later, or maybe we can discuss it tomorrow. I will continue reading chapter 3 tomorrow, boys and girls.